It's actually a nice sunny day today. See Cookies over there, hanging out. Hey cactus friends, it's Jenny from Cookies Cacti. So I was just out here under my pergola looking at everybody, seeing how everybody's doing, because it was a cold night last night. And I noticed that there was this prickly pear pad just lying here by itself, and I don't know how it got there. You can see I have some others that are propagating, but thinking maybe a bird came in here, maybe knocked it off or something. I don't know, but it's lying there. And I actually have a couple more prickly pear pads that are just sort of lying around. Let me show you. So I had some pots of prickly pear over here that I have since given to my parents, but one day I was out here and noticed that a couple of pads had fallen off of those prickly pear as well. Now I'm going to pick them up. I'm using paper here because although these look like they're spineless and thornless, if you really zoom in on those aerials, there are glochids there. Glochids are the worst. Don't touch them. So I'm going to use paper to pick up these prickly pear just to save my hands. And almost guaranteed every time I deal with prickly pear, I will get some glochids. It sucks. But these pads actually came from these plants that are in the ground. They fell off of this plant over here. They just got so heavy, the arms and the pads, and they just broke off. Here, I'll show you where it broke off. Like here, for example. So I picked up the entire group of pads and rerouted it, and then these fell off of that rooted pot of prickly pear. So because I found these pads lying around, I thought, why don't I make a video to show you how I propagate prickly pear? These are probably the easiest plants to propagate. If I can do it, you can do it too. So literally, all you need to do is get some pots and then fill them up with dirt or soil. What I like to do for this kind of propagation is I have buckets of what I call like leftover soil, if you will. This is all like stuff that I've dumped out of other pots, or I've repotted plants and just saved the soil that came with those plants. So I don't throw that away. I keep it. And so it's just like a mix of whatever. There's a lot of perlite in here from even my seed pots that I have repotted and uppotted, and I just save all that stuff. And so it's, you know, there's no special mix in here. Some of it's very organic and some of it's not. And it doesn't matter for these prickly pear. Let me get some pots of dirt ready and then I'll show you. Alright, so I've picked a couple of these nursery pots that are just from other plants that I've bought in the past. I like to keep all of these for uses like this. And I picked, a couple pots that will fit these size pads. I also have one of these tiny little, what is this, maybe a 2-inch pot for that little pad. Hold on, let me go grab it. Alright, so see, this is a good fit for this, and it's probably the smallest pot that I have. And literally, so I've got one hand holding the camera, so I can't do this live, but literally what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to stick this into the soil and then fill up the soil such that it will touch those aerials. So I'm going to stop the camera, go do that, and then show you what it looks like. Alright, so I've potted up a couple of these pads. So I did one of the bigger ones. That, as easy as that, from my scrap soil mix. And then the little one I've got in this little 2-inch pot, just like that. So the key here is that if you had freshly cut this prickly pear pad, or you had just pulled it off of the mother plant, you probably want to leave it lying like this for a little bit of time until the wound callus is off, kind of heals up. And these have already, I think these fell off of the plant, or were knocked off of the plant probably about a week ago. So they've just been sitting there, out in the open air like that for about a week, and it's pretty dry already here. But the key is you want this to dry and callus off, because if you leave it as a fresh wound, it will rot really easily if it gets any moisture in it or get infected from touching the soil. So just let it, you can just sit it, sit it somewhere in the shade for some time until you see that it has calloused over. These pads can sit like this for a really long time, especially right now because it's winter, it's cold, it's not as dry as in the summer. It can preserve the moisture in the pad for a very long time. So don't have any anxiety. You can probably leave it out for I don't know, 2 weeks, several months or something, and it'll be fine. It'll just slowly desiccate over time. But once you get that callousing, that drying off, then you would just stick it in some soil like this. The soil is mostly dry. It might be slightly moist, but it is mostly dry. And what you're trying to do is to get the soil to touch the end and to touch some areoles, because it's from these areoles, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but potentially from this end that this will start to grow roots. I don't know if it's some like a hormonal trigger or something, that when these areoles touch dirt, touch soil, it will trigger it to start growing roots. The key when it's freshly potted up like this is you do not want to water this while it's fresh and has no roots. Because if you imagine, if it has no roots, it has no way to pull up that moisture, and it will rot. And I have rotted out many prickly pear pads just because I didn't know any better. So I would leave it like this for quite some time, especially when it's in the winter. Again, this is always through trial and error on how to do this and how to do it properly. For me, I used to really fret over the propagations, and now I just kind of forget that they're even there. And I've left them like outside and just let the rain take care of it. And then you'll know if it's rooted. One way is that if you, like right now, if I were to pull on this pad, it would just be very loose and easily pull out of the pot. But once it starts to root and you kind of tug on it gently, you'll feel it holding its space. It'll be much more difficult to pull it out of the pot, if you will. Another way to tell this, sometime down the line, you might start to see this pad desiccate over time while you're waiting for it to root and you're kind of holding back on water. And at some point when you feel that it has rooted, you can give it a light drink of water and you'll start to see it plump up again. So then you'll know for sure that there's roots there. But with prickly pear, where I live in the Sonoran Desert, I just kind of, the old set it and forget it saying, that's kind of how I handle these. Again, I've rotted many of these propagations before. Not a big deal. Just try again. Sometimes if you've noticed that it has rotted, let's say you saw, oh, it's rotted up to here, you can take a knife, cut off the rot, let the pad sit out again, wait till that wound calluses over and dries over, then replant it again, and just make sure that some of those areoles are touching the dirt. Another way to plant it is you don't even have to plant it upright like this. You can literally just lie the pad flat on some dirt or on some soil. And what will happen is sometimes the pad will start to curl upwards, like the end of it will start to curl upwards, and it will start growing baby pads off of that. Or sometimes it will stay flat and you'll start to see some pads growing out of the areoles upward. And I think I have an example to show you. So that's a really easy way to propagate this, because you literally just lie it on some dirt. Like here's an example of a pad that I just lied flat on that soil, and you can see that the end of it started to turn upward and to grow vertically, which is really, really funny. And then next to it I have another pad that I had just stuck vertically in the soil. This is purely just to see what would happen, because I've heard of this way of planting these pads as well, and it definitely works. And I have other examples too I've tried like this. And then this plant, along with this little guy, these are Consolea rubescens, so they are the roadkill cactus. I have many of the adult plants. I bought it from Walmart, like a whole pot that I split up and realized, oh my gosh, I don't need that many plants. So my parents have some of them now too. And these are more examples. So these I probably propagated a year ago, and I just kind of don't really pay attention to them. So they've dried out, I've watered them, they're pretty plump right now because it rained and it's cold right now. Here's more. I swear, if you buy one prickly pear, just like agave, you get 20 prickly pear, 100 prickly pear, 20 agave, 100 agave. Let me show you the adult plant of that roadkill cactus. I have an example over here. So those pads have fallen off. This one's a little yellow. It's fine. Pads have fallen off. You can see here. I've stuck them in soil. Let's see if this is rooted. Yeah, it has got a lot of give. And you can see how plump it is. This I just threw flat, and I think it has also rooted by now and it's nice and plump. There's another one I just threw flat in that pot, and you can see it turning upwards like that. And I have more that I accidentally rotted out like 2 winters ago when I really had no idea what I was doing. These have all rotted at some point, and I just cut off the rot, let it callous over, stick it in more soil, and it re-rooted. Another one. I think the really tough part is to hold yourself back from watering the newly propagated plants. Just leave it like this, don't touch it. You'll kind of know. But in the beginning, I feel like everybody just has to make some mistakes and you'll learn. And over time, you'll kind of just start to relax in the process and then just forget about them. And then they'll do great. So I don't know if this is a helpful video at all, but this is how I propagate prickly pear. So that one plant turns into 100 plants. Alright y'all, I will come back with more videos and I will talk to y'all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye. So another plant that is really easy to propagate are agave. And you can see I have agave pups everywhere. It's literally the same process as propagating the prickly pear pads. Now obviously the agave don't have areoles like cactus do, but really it's just the end of these pups that have the ability to grow roots. So you're literally just planting the pup into the soil, and I use the same like that scrap soil. Stick them in there, leave them for however long, and then eventually at some point I'll water them or just kind of let nature take care of it, especially because it's winter. Now in the summer you might want to watch them a little bit more closely on when they might need water, but you know, these guys are built to withstand drought. So sometimes they may go a little bit too far in terms of not watering, but they'll be okay. Just try it. But I have had mistakes on the prickly pear where I watered too soon, too much, and then the propagates rotted out. Agave, knock on wood, on the other hand, I have not had any casualties in terms of accidentally overwatering. Hey, Cookie. Hi. Hi, Cookie. So here's some agave. I think I stuck them in these pots probably 2 weeks ago now. I had planted an agave in the ground, and when I unpotted it, I might as well have, took out some of the pups. And I have not hand watered these. They have gotten rained on, and so you see they're fine. And that soil mix is gritty, but it's actually quite organic, and they're fine. And you can see I have more agave, more agave, more agave. Even this one fell off, or was, I think maybe a bird pulled off this little pup, and it had almost no stem on it, and it's still rooted. Aloes are another one that's easy to root. So aloe, agave, prickly pear are all fairly easy to propagate. I find agave to probably be the easiest of all three in terms of being not rot prone. Aloe can be a little bit tricky because they can also rot out when they're newly propagated if you water them too soon or too much. And aloe I have rotted out on the propagations. But agave have been very easy. Literally you buy one plant and you have 100 plants. So, get out there, give it a try. This technique is really good when the mother plant is starting to die and you're trying to save the mother plant or, get some clones off of her. I've done that before. I've tried doing that before. It's actually quite fun. So just get out there, give it a try. There's going to be some error, almost guaranteed there will be some error involved, but that's part of the learning process. And luckily these kinds of plants are, you rot it once, cut off the rot, try it again, rot it again, cut it off, try it again. I have done it to the point where I had nothing left to try again, but it's up to you to give it a try. So have fun with it.